Welcome. If you're just joining us, you are watching Books with Bridgetti, where storytellers feel right at home. Change is often harder than we imagined. It almost always is. Cathy Derksen is the founder of Inspired Tenacity and helps women gain confidence. You're watching Books with Bridgetti, and our special guest is Cathy Derksen, and we're talking about the book I read, Stories of Transformation. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Thanks for having me on your live show. It was really my pleasure. Your production is just fantastic. Unbelievable how you guys are pulling that off. So organized with segments and transitions and all those different things. Right in line with what I'm talking about in my new book, Going Live streaming your podcast to reach more people. Hopefully people tune in for our conversation. It's definitely worth the on-demand version, in my opinion, if I may say so myself. You guys are awesome.
I think this might be, I've been on over 24 different podcasts and radio shows in the last couple of months, and this has to be one of the most sophisticated, what the kids that I used to teach call bomb.com shows and presentations that I've ever been on. It looks fantastic.
I love your introduction. How professional. That sounds, I feel like I'm on a beautiful show here.
Folks, welcome.
Available wherever great books are sold near you.
Oh my goodness, Ross, thank you so much.
Thanks. This is one of the most fun interviews that I've ever done. So thank you, Bridgetti.
Big pleasure. Ross, take care.
Thank you.
If you have just joined the show, welcome to Books with Bridgetti, where storytellers feel right at home. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. And oh my goodness, I just had something in my throat. How awful. This live stream is brought to you by StreamYard and Beeline Media. So if you're watching, whether that's over on Facebook, on YouTube, on Amazon Live, on Twitch, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, anywhere you're watching us on social media, a big heart to welcome. Feel free to say hi in the comments. Feel free to interact with us because this is an interactive show. I am watching the comments, and I think I'm going to have a sip of coffee because I've just suddenly got something stuck in my throat and I can't talk. So just 1 second while I have a very quick sip. Oh, that's so much better. Thank you so much. So again, if this is your first time watching us, feel free to let us know if you are new. Today's guest is Cathy Derksen, and I'm really, really looking forward to having her on the show. She's an amazing guest. She's got lots of wisdom to share, and I can't wait to talk to her. But one of the things that I am very, very, very passionate about is teaching people how to level up when they are online. Now, if you are an author, like Cathy is, one of the things that the pandemic has done for us, we always talk about the negative stuff, but one of the positive things that have come out of the pandemic is the fact that we can now do business without walls. In other words, we can do business wherever the internet is available, and that's just about almost everywhere. It means that authors, for example, if you are an author, you're not limited to talking about your book or your business only in your local library or only to your local community. You can literally talk about your books, products, and services anywhere. In other words, pandemics enabled us to expand our businesses because we've gotten a lot more comfortable talking on camera like we are now. I'm talking to you wherever you are, where the internet's available. Thank you for joining again. And if you've missed that, my name is Bridgetti Bander from Cape Town in South Africa. Now, a few things that you can do to level up when you are talking about your books, products, or services is to use an external camera to make sure people can not camera, an external microphone so people can hear you clearly. People will forgive, internet signals can come and go and they can give you issues, but if people can't hear you clearly, they will tune out. So make sure that you've got a solid microphone, and it doesn't have to be a big one. This is the Samsung microphone. You can use one of the plug-in things. That's the iRig. My other personal favorite is the Rode Lavalier, which is just a plug-in, and you get the Boya. They're a dime a dozen, but it will make a huge, huge difference if you plug that into your camera. Now, a lot of you, here's another quick tip. A lot of you go live on, say, for example, TikTok and Instagram, and then you would naturally hold your phone in portrait mode like that. And that's perfect because on those platforms, when you're talking about your books or products or services, that is the way to hold your phone. But if you're going live to, say, YouTube, for example, or Facebook or Amazon or any of the other places, simply turn your phone into landscape mode and you'll have a bigger screen real estate and people can see more of you. You can use your hands, you can be animated. It just makes things so much more comfortable for the audience. And I do recommend that you do not try and hold your phone in your hand, whether you're doing landscape or portrait. Don't try and hold your phone in your hand when you're talking to the audience because it'll make them feel seasick because, you invariably will end up shaking your phone and you don't want to do that. So, whether you, and again, these tripods are a dime a dozen. You can literally take your pick. There are just so many of them that you can use. And I personally use the Logitech Brio camera. Anything in the Logitech range, there's a couple of them. Of course, you can use a DSLR if you want to, but you don't have to because the webcams are fabulous. And again, as I said, I recommend the Logitech. And then the other thing you want to do is to avoid any background noise is use, again, diamonds. And these are my favorite ones. But do use something like that, and that'll take care of your sound as well if you don't have a lavalier microphone. But now I want to invite my amazing special guest, Cathy Derksen, to come and join me here so we can chat for a bit. She's got so much value that she wants to share with all of us. She quotes Brene Brown and she says, we can choose courage or we can choose comfort, but we can't have both, not at the same time. There's so much good sense in that. Cathy is the founder of Inspired Tenacity. She's an international speaker and a 6 times best-selling author, although I must check with her, that could have changed because she's written quite a number of books. And today, one of the books we'll dive into is the book I read, Stories of Transformation. And Cathy wrote chapter 9, and that's entitled Embrace Courage and Vulnerability. So I'm going to ask her to tell us a little bit more about herself because she's got a lot more to her. So let's give a hearty warm welcome to my amazing guest, Cathy, shall we? Cathy, welcome.
Hello. It's great to be here again.
Wonderful. It's wonderful to have you, to be talking to you again. Now, you left your corporate job, and I often ask people, why would you do that? There's a lot of security in having a corporate job. It's not that easy being an entrepreneur, although I've been doing that for a long time myself. But there's various perks to that. So tell me, why did you leave your corporate job and what are you doing now beyond being an author?
Well, I think one of the main reasons I left was that I really felt that it was not in alignment with what I was trying to accomplish. I feel a bigger mission to really change people's lives and have an impact that is really on a global scale. And working in my corporate position, I was very confined by the products I was allowed to sell, the lines I was allowed to use, the types of teachings I could apply. And I just really felt that it was too small, that it really wasn't having, like, my vision really was a global impact people's lives, improve the situation in the world. And yes, and it was definitely a big move to walk away from the comforts of a corporate job with a good salary and all those benefits and a regular system to depend on, and set out on my own and start my own business. That was a brand new thing for me, and I am still learning. There's definitely a lot about being an entrepreneur that you don't realize until you get there.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite a sobering thing. I think a lot of people enjoy the freedom that comes with being an entrepreneur. It's really, really hard work. But for me, I know that when my children were young, it was wonderful to be able to take care of them at a drop of a hat. I didn't have to ask anyone for permission, or I didn't have to feel guilty. So there are a lot of pluses to it, so you can take care of life when life happens. And sometimes life happens a little bit more often than we'd like it to.
Yes. But it's interesting, though, how you mentioned at the beginning about the number of books that I've done. My number of best-selling books is now 7. And the last one that I was in was a group called Blue, so Business, Life, and Universe. And in that book, the chapter I wrote, I called it Business and Butterflies. And I compared that evolution that we go through as we start as entrepreneurs, and just the different stages that we have to go through to become successful and productive, compared that with the stages of a butterfly, from egg to caterpillar to pupa, and then off to being a butterfly. And part of it is that total meltdown that has to happen in that evolution of becoming an entrepreneur and walking away from the life you used to have and really stepping into living in the business. So yes, butterflies, I find, are a great example for many things.
I really like that, because butterfly is a transition, and they start out looking like not very much, but when they blossom into beautiful butterflies, you can't imagine the kind of beauty. And so I really like that you've made that comparison between the two, because there are very ugly sides to starting a business. A lot of people don't realize just how hard it can be. There's great sides to entrepreneurial life, but there's some not so great parts to it too, and it can be incredibly hard. I mean, to me, that just sort of, I want to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about Inspired Tenacity? Because that to me also just kind of ties in so much with that entrepreneurial world. How did you come up with Inspired Tenacity?
Well, it's funny. Over the years, I've really learned to trust my intuition and my gut on messages that I receive. And I guess it's been almost 12 years ago now when I describe it that I threw my life up in the air and reinvented it on the way back down. I left a career I had been in for 25 years. I went through a divorce, set out on my own with 2 teenage kids that were in their own state of chaos, and literally had to just reinvent myself, reinvent where we lived, how we lived, what I was doing going forward. And that's when I started with my adventure towards entrepreneur life. And just in coming up with a name and what I was going through at that time, having to really just sink into what I had to do next and getting through major hurdles. And it came to me that inspiration and tenacity are 2 of the things we have to get through and take on any big challenge in life. And the idea of putting those words together as inspired tenacity, because tenacity has to have an inspiration behind it, or you're not going to have that really get up and go and stick with it. So it's funny because when I first started my business and chose that name, I had some people at the beginning tell me, oh, you can't use that. It doesn't mean anything. People won't know what that is. And I almost did change it until I started bumping into my real people. And now I bump into so many people and they hear that name and they immediately go, I love it. That's it. Inspired Tenacity. So I've learned to differentiate my people from those that maybe aren't my people by whether they connect with the name of my business or not. And a big part of my focus is working with midlife women. And I find that most of us have gone through a lot of ups and downs in our life. We've learned a lot. We have a lot of wisdom to share. And many of those women immediately connect with the name of my company. Just tenacity, I think, is something we just have to have.
Absolutely. Without tenacity, we could find ourselves in hot water more often than we'd like. Now, you specialize in financial literacy for women. Um,
I'm not so much
why would you say
anymore.
not so much in
In my corporate job, I was in financial planning, and I went into financial planning because I realized that finance was a huge place that women needed help to really change their life. But I really discovered that, again, going back to working in the corporate side versus doing my own thing, that in most cases, it's not our lack of information about numbers and finance that change our success rate. It's more the stories we tell ourselves about money than the stories about our own limitations and abilities and what I can do and can't do. So it's really more about the stories and our own expectations for our life that control our success with money. And so what I've really been inspired to do was to completely walk away from the numbers side of financial success or any success in life. And now I have that freedom to refocus back towards the beginning, where we really come up with that dream and that plan, and what are your expectations for your own life, and what are the limitations you're putting on yourself. And in my experience, until you've changed or adjusted that side, it doesn't matter how much information you have about numbers and all these different systems in dealing with your money. And of course, part of it too is that my audience has become very global. And with every different region having their own types of programs and products and those sorts of things, then it really kind of limited what I could talk about. So now I really focus. I don't talk about money anymore at all unless somebody wants to talk about that part. I focus on that beginning. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? And then we can make the rest of it add together. But most people haven't really spent any time thinking about that. As midlife women, we often have gotten to our 50s and our 60s with this vision of retirement, but haven't really spent much time thinking about what does that really look like. And that old vision of I'm going to retire at 65 and golf and putter around, you have to plan to live into your 90s. Most of us will not be happy puttering for 30 years. So, and again, so many of us have so much experience and wisdom and energy and just, love for life. So that's where I'm really focusing my energy now, is helping women to really notice and realize and seize that moment that, yes, you have another 30, 40 years ahead of you to do what you want to do. Let's figure that out.
Oh my goodness, Cathy, I think this is a subject so close to my heart because, gone are the days, as you said, when we used to think of 60 as the golden years, the retirement years. Life doesn't work that way anymore. There are so many people that live into their 90s. And the truth of the matter is we can't really rely on the system or the government to take care of us because that just doesn't happen anymore. Or if we do get some kind of government assistance, it really will just cover perhaps your food. But there's so much more to life than that. And 30 years is a long time, like what are you going to do
Oh,
sitting and twiddling
exactly.
your thumb?
Exactly.
But I want to just pick up on what you said earlier about the messaging that we tell ourselves, because that is so important. Because if you tell yourself, I can't do this, I can't do that, there's so many things during our life as a woman that you take care of. One of the things I often say, for example, is we do a lot of stuff when we have children, um, to help them on their journey, or we're helping our spouse or significant other on their journey, and we put ourselves on the back burner because it's just not important at that phase that we're in our lives. And now that the children have left the nest, we've moved on to a different phase in our life, and we need to now get out of that mode of I can't do, because all the excuses that we had all those years, or reasons for not doing something for ourselves, are now gone. And so if we look at it as a new chapter has opened, one door is closed and another door is opened. But that the narratives we tell ourselves is so important. Now, when you talk to women about that, what has been the response to people, and do you help them rediscover who they want to be?
Well, it's kind of been a really interesting process, and that's one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur, that I can really adapt the services that I'm bringing according to what people are actually asking for. What help do people really need? And like you're saying, so many of us, we ended up in jobs because they fit our family schedule, or because they were adjustable. Like you were saying about, the work that you did when your kids were young. It was great that you had that flexibility. But quite often, women in our, say, 50s and 60s, we almost feel like, well, I'm too old now to start something new. When the reality is you have so much experience and wisdom to share, it's time to start something new. And over the last few months, I have pretty much completely shifted my business to creating collaborative book projects, because I found by sharing our stories and what we've been through, that's what helps other women to recognize that in themselves and to take on that courage to step into something different. The more we hear stories of other women who have been in our situation and have made decisions to do something different and have moved forward through that, the more we hear those stories, I think it really helps give us permission to do the same, or to at least think about what we want. Because I find that's a big part of it, that we're not even giving ourselves permission to think about what we want. And so I've really just been focusing on creating these books that help women to clarify their own story and put it in writing, but then to also share that story to support other women in their journeys. A couple of the books that I've just finished doing, I've got one that's just going to be released in January called Embrace Courage, that I've curated, brought together the team of authors on. And with that one, they're sharing those stories of times in their life when they've had to take on courage to get through things. And the next book that I'm putting together right now is called Midlife Awakening. And again, so many of us have we hit those times in our life when we're just like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm going in the wrong direction. How do I get going in a different direction? And again, by hearing stories of other women and men as well that have gone through these big shifts and made these big decisions and just found that community to help them move forward in the direction they want to go, I think it really does help to bring us that energy and that shift in our own belief in ourselves.
So let's talk a little bit about the collaboration books, because to me that's also a whole new topic that I'm passionate about. Now, for anyone who hasn't been published, I hear a lot of authors talk about how overwhelmed they feel by the process of getting published.
Yes.
And and collaboration books kind of removes that barrier to entry as author. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started as a collaboration author and how that has changed your life?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So 2019 was the first time I was in a book, and that was with a local group here. I'm on the west coast of Canada. A local group here had been doing book projects for a few years, and I'd been aware of them, but didn't really feel inspired to get involved. And I think as the different titles come along, certain titles catch your attention. And the one came up, and her focus on that one was emotional intelligence. And again, focusing on how do we get through things and what are those big shifts we've gone through and how did we do that? And for some reason, that title just really hit me at that time. Where I was at in my life, it felt like I have a story to share on that. And that's where I got started. And so, as we were saying, so it's been 3 years and 7 books. I've got 5 books that I'm working on right now. So, by March, it'll be a dozen books. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I was going to have a career in writing and publishing, I would have thought you were crazy. But now and again, paying attention to my intuition and what's working and what people are asking for from me, where I fit in this journey of life, I've really found this is what people want from me. This is the sweet spot where people are coming to me and saying, I want to do that with you. I want to be part of your project. I want to join what you're doing. I love what you're doing. Tell me more about what you're doing. So, I mean, to me as an entrepreneur, especially, that is what we're looking for. We're looking for creating something that other people actually want from us. And especially for myself, I know that feeling that I'm actually helping people in the way that is needed is really what makes me feel inspired and excited, and I know I'm doing the right thing. So yes, collaboration books I find are a great way to jump into being an author. I've heard so many stories from people that are working on their solo book, and it's been 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years. I know people have been working on their book for 20 years. And it's still not done. Whereas you get into these collaboration books, you write one chapter, you're with a team of authors working on the same theme, each with their own story, but together on this project. And it's fun, it's simple. We have professional editors, and we do the whole big launch and get to international bestseller. And then you get that title of international bestseller. So now when you go back to your solo book, you go to it with that identity of I am an author. Because I think that's what slows people down in their own books, is that identity crisis of I'm writing a book, but I'm not an author. Who am I to call myself an author? And then you get into this whole process and realize, okay, I can be an author. I am an author.
That is so. For someone who's not ventured into becoming a collaboration author, what is roughly the word commitment, and what is the average time that it takes to get a collaboration book out from start to finish to becoming a international best-selling author?
Exactly. Most of the books that I've been putting together are generally 2,000 words, 2,500 words, 3,000 words in some cases, but generally 2,000 words, which is really about 4 pages. So an essay that you might have written in school was probably about the same size. So it's relatively small undertaking compared with doing a whole book. And the nice thing is that it's based around a theme. And so you write your story or the part of your story that fits in that the best. And I often find one of the bigger challenges of doing the one chapter contribution is narrowing down your story to what is the message I want to share in this book, and what is the precise story I'm going to focus on for this book. And so about 2,000 words. Once you're in the flow of writing, you could probably write that in a couple hours for that draft. And then from there, you'd be revising and shifting and developing it a bit from there. And the part of creating the whole collaboration book, the part that takes the longest is the beginning of gathering the team of authors together. Most of my books, I've got 20 to 30 authors involved with. So if it's a project that people are jumping in on and that part is really fast, you could actually have a whole book project together in less than 6 months. You could probably do it in 4 months if you've got a team of authors ready to go. Because once we've got the drafts, everybody's chapter ready, it's about 6 weeks after that to get through the editing process and then get through the marketing materials, organize the launch, and get through that way. So the longest.
It's a fun and exciting project, isn't it? Because you're working with other people. You're not on your own. And as you said, I also like that you can literally knock out your chapter in a day, and then just do some editing after that. But I think it's just, it's the mindset that's the difficult part for people.
Yes.
Deciding what it is that you're going to focus on in your story. So as far as the writing process is concerned, do you have any tips for people that are curious about how to get started?
Oh, definitely. And that's one of the things I offer too, that you can just jump on my calendar and we'll jump on a Zoom call and chat about what you're working on, what kind of focus, throw around a few different ideas. But definitely the first thing I say is to get that narrow down that idea of what message you want to share with the reader in this book. And then I just really suggest people just sit down and just start writing. In that first draft, don't worry about your punctuation and your sentence flow and how many words even you've got down on the page yet. Just let it come out, throw it down there, and then and after you've kind of put that together, then I'd like to go back and look through and think, okay, what are the different real components I want to make sure I've got here, and work things around that and move forward from there. And there's kind of a few layers of it, of kind of focusing on that message, let a bunch of stuff come out, resort it on what are the priorities, reread it, and definitely passing it by with other people. And like when you get to the point that you're feeling, okay, this is readable and someone can understand this, then get other people that, and one of the big messages, don't just give it to your immediate family and friends to read through if you don't feel like they're your primary audience. Because I quite often find when people do that and they give it to their direct family to proofread for them, but that person is not someone who is their real audience, that you get feedback that's not really useful. So I would look for somebody who you feel is your audience, have them read through it and see what they're getting out of your message that you're bringing out. So, but it's a really fun process. And we always have a chat group either on Facebook or LinkedIn that just the authors in that book are in, so they can communicate about what they're working on. They meet each other just in this whole part. And as you were mentioning at the very beginning about how COVID has kind of made the whole world a small place because we're all online. For me, in all these different books, meeting the network that I have now, I have a truly global community that I work in now. Like just yesterday in the morning, I was on a Zoom with someone in London, England. In the afternoon, I was talking to somebody in Australia. Here I am with you in South Africa. So really, we are all just jumping on together, meeting people. One of my goals in the next few years is to plan a big trip where I go around the world, meeting some of these people that I've been working with for a couple of years now.
Oh my goodness, that would be absolutely awesome. I think that's a wonderful goal to have, to physically just go around the world and meet. Now, I know one of the ladies we've been working with is Kristen Miracle, and she's been traveling around.
Oh, she
and
good.
following her journey. And it's just, amazing to see her happy and being able to travel and explore. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity in the later years of your life when you've got a bit more freedom to be able to do that sort of thing. And I think, more women should have that opportunity. And this is where one of the things where, collaboration books opens up. Now, maybe we can talk about that for a minute. How does being an author, albeit a collaboration author, open up doors for you to other opportunities? Can we talk about that just for a little bit?
Well, there's a few different ways. I mean, part of it is definitely the building of community where you can really get to know people. And from that, then spin off other ways of collaborating and working on other kinds of projects together. And a few of the other things, I found that I've created just a community that supports me in, this evolution as an entrepreneur. I've met so many people that do different kinds of businesses and services that I never would have even heard of before, but have been very helpful and useful in everything that I'm doing. And even if your goal is to create a speaking as part of your business that you're doing, that definitely having a book under your belt and to be able to call yourself an international bestseller definitely opens up more doors in the speaking areas as well. And I definitely find that once people get comfortable in those collaborative books, so they often do start their own solo books that might be more specific to the work that you're doing, that then would be even more of a valuable business card going forward with your own lessons and information. One of the other things that I'm putting together right now is even having my own TV channel, similar to what you do, where I'll be able to put both my content, but also other people's content on my channel. And so I can really start developing that side of the community as well. And even bringing in different streams of income around sponsorship and other kinds of promotions. And with some people, they do look at books as a way they plan to earn income. Generally speaking, with collaborative books, I tell people don't expect it to be a money-making venture in itself. When you think about it, when you've got 20 and 30 authors involved, a lot of the retailers take a big chunk of any of the sale price of a book. So there's really not a lot of money to be made on the books. So it really is those other activities that you build around being an author that become those income generating activities later. So I find there's a lot of different ways to make a book really build your business and your lifestyle. But the bottom line is the network that you create, the community.
And somebody came up with a phrase, your net worth is your network.
I believe that. I think it's very true.
Which it very much is. And so you can look at these books, at being, a published author in a collaborative book as your business card, literally. Because as you mentioned, you build up relationships with the people in the book, and every collaborative book has got about 20 to 30 different authors. So you've gotten to know 20 to 30 new women that you didn't know before. And you become a very close-knit community. And who do we do business with? We do business with people that we know, like, and trust. And so in that process of working on a collaborative book, you've met 20 to 30 new people you've come to know, like, and trust. So that's opened up your network significantly. And if you do a couple of these books, it really makes the world your oyster. And these are women that are all over the world, because they don't have to be women in your local area. They can be anywhere. So that's quite an amazing thing. So what's next up for you, Cathy? I think maybe if you can just, for anyone that's joined the show now, what is your next upcoming collaborative book, and are you still looking for people, and what kind of collaborative authors are you looking for?
Yes, yes. And one of the focuses I have in my books right now as well is that for groups, like say somebody is a trainer that has a community under them, we're creating books that are titled and branded around that main person in their business. And then we fill the books with people from their community. So it becomes a win-win on both sides. It becomes a branding piece for the business owner, but also an opportunity for all of their clients that are in it to be part of that book project. I've got one of the books that I'm working on, still bringing in authors right now, is called Midlife Awakening. So that one is, again, those stories of that shift in life. So let me know if that one's of interest. Going forward into the new year, I'm creating new books around, we're looking at grief. We're looking at imposter syndrome. I'm working with a community of C-suite people, and we're creating a series of books around people in the C-suite. And so collaboration and mentorship are a big part of where we're starting that focus. So really going forward, I'm creating a series of books on various themes that people find inspiring and helpful. So if you'd like to join into any of the ones I've already got going on, that'd be great. And if you have some really key idea that you think you would like to contribute to and you think the community would like to hear about, let me know those as well. And that's where those ones around grief and imposter syndrome have come up, when I've had a few people asking me, hey, can you do something like this? Or, hey, I'd love to contribute to a book like that. And it's really kind of sparked those ideas on what to go forward with, because that's a big part of my goal, is to create books that both the writer is excited to share their story on, but also obviously that readers are excited to want to read and absorb the information from. So, but definitely jumping on my website's really easy, just inspiredtenacity.com. And there's spots on there you can book right onto my calendar. And LinkedIn is my main social place that you'll find me. I'm not really active in a lot of the other ones, but
But LinkedIn you are. Those are amazing. Those are great topics. I feel post-pandemic, for me personally, and from speaking to other people, the pandemic has been very challenging because a lot of us have lost people in quick succession. And so instead of grieving for one person at a time, which is usually a very long process, you find yourself trying to cope with grieving for multiple people at the same time. And not all of us have the same coping skills or mechanisms. And so for a lot of people, that has been a huge turning point in their life, trying to find ways of dealing with compounded grief.
And I think we have to look at grief differently as well, too, that the grief isn't just about the loss of a person or a pet, but it's also the loss of our feeling of safety and our loss of the world that we knew, and the loss of just the routine that we thought we had. Or, even if we look at things like divorce or other major changes in life, there's a grieving that we go through to adjust and to just come into some new normal. And so looking at grief in a bigger picture, as well as, like you're saying, this complex and layered grief that we just haven't even been able to sink our teeth into yet. And so that was definitely one of the big things around picking grief as a title or a theme going forward, because I think there's just so many. The last few years has added layers of different kinds of grief that we didn't have to deal with before.
Cathy, that's a very interesting conversation, and maybe another time we can dive into that, because I was telling somebody for myself, I've become so comfortable not going out, and I've spoken to a lot of people who are in that same position. They don't want to leave their house any longer because they've come to feel safe in the four walls, and so people are less inclined to go out and socialize, because this has become their safety net. So what the pandemic has done to us psychologically, a lot of people are still struggling to get out of that, and some people, as you say, are grieving the loss of a previous way of life. and they're finding it really, really hard to make those adaptations. So as you rightly said, it's not just the death of loved ones or people we cared about. It's also the death or the end of a life or a period in our lives as we knew it, and we can now be mourning for that. Cathy, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
We can talk a lot more, and I'd love to have you back again, because I almost feel like, there's so much more we could talk about, but I think we just about need to wrap up our time now for today, but definitely would love to invite you back again. So if you just, as a way of wrapping up, how can people best connect with you?
Yeah, like I was saying, so my website, inspiredtenacity.com, and on LinkedIn, you'll find me there too if you search my name or Inspired Tenacity. I've got a business page, and my profile are both connected with that name. And yeah, and I would love to just jump on a Zoom chat or connect through direct messaging, I find is the best ways. And just hearing people's stories and the ideas they have, I find really inspires new ideas in myself of books and programs and things we can come up with. So if you've got something percolating, an idea there, let me know. And like I said, so the books that I'm looking for right now, Midlife Awakening is the one right now that we're filling in, and the mentorship and collaboration is the other one. So
wonderful. I want to just say a huge big shout out to my audience, people over on Amazon Live, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the stream. And if you are catching the stream on the replay, welcome to the replay. Thank you for joining us. And we'd love to see you back on the next episode of Books with Bridgetti. And Cathy, a huge big thank you. I'd love to invite you back to the show again. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Books with Bridgetti. Bye for now.
thank you.